There was some news made, especially right at the top, under some sharp questioning from Savannah Guthrie. The president told us some stuff about his own COVID experience that is new. The president, in his own words, asked about whether or not he had pneumonia, says that he was told his lungs looked a little different, perhaps infected. They've never before talked about what the president's illness, how it was characterized. They've never been able to, describe his scans or describe what his test results were. The president tonight is saying he was told that his lungs looked a little different and were perhaps infected. Asked as a follow-up, infected with what? The president wouldn't say. The president did say that White House doctors would answer that question. The White House doctors have been unwilling to do anything of the sort under sharp questioning from the White House press corps. Under further questioning from Savannah Guthrie, the president also continues to refuse to say when his last negative test was before he tested positive late on the night of October 1st. Now, this is important because this tells us when the president was potentially infected, including whether or not the president potentially was infected when he stood on that debate stage with Joe Biden 2 nights before he tested positive. Now, the president said tonight that he didn't feel any symptoms during the debate. He didn't feel symptoms till after the debate. But this is fascinating. He would not say whether or not he actually took a test on the day of the debate. That was a requirement of the Commission on Presidential Debates, that both candidates had to be tested. It was, unfortunately, a requirement that was enforced through the honor system, assuming that that both of the presidential candidates could be trusted to do that. The president says he does not recall. He insisted that he doesn't remember whether or not he was tested on the day of the debate, which is crazy, given that he tested positive and was pretty significantly symptomatic 2 days later. It does seem like there is a very real possibility that the president was positive the day of the debate when he stood up there with no mask on, with his family with no mask on in the debate hall, and he debated Joe Biden for debate 1. The president also said, again, making further news, that he does not get tested every day, nor has he been tested every day over the course of the pandemic.